Hello, everyone. It's Jaden for Student Pages. Hope you're all doing fantastic today. Today we have another artist spotlight for you guys. We are here with Tihane. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
No, of course I'm doing very well. So, first of all, to get us kicked off, if you could just give us a bit of a background as to how you got into the music industry and what made you go in that direction.
Yeah, I love that question every time. So, specifically, how I got into music and the music industry, two different things. I got into music because I was born. I'm Polynesian, so the second that you come out of the womb, you're like thrown into music and dance and storytelling and all of that. If you don't know, Polynesian is like Pacific Islander, so Samoa, Hawaii, Tahiti, all of that.
Okay, yeah.
And then the music industry was just because I was always singing, dancing, making music, all of it. And I didn't want to live a life where I had to do anything other than that. So I started just in the proper music industry when I was much younger. And then I got a bit restless because I wanted more creative control. I wanted more creative freedom. And so I sort of live with one leg inside the music industry and then one leg in more just like the creative industry. I'm also a creative director and I work with other creatives and other musicians, helping them produce, find their sound, and all of that. So I get like the best of the music industry, but I also don't get stuck in it, kind of like where you end up losing your ability to write your own songs, make your own music, and all of that. So I feel like I get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been basically just balancing the talents that you have, as far as I understand it. It's like not wanting to get yourself stuck in one place when you've so many things that you can apply yourself to.
Absolutely. It's exactly like that.
So, if we take a look then at your latest album, The War on Love, how would you say that album has developed you personally as an artist, and what was the voice, what was the inspiration behind that album?
Such a great question. The War on Love really has a mind of its own as an album. It was something that I thought I was making, and then I realized it was making me. I started the idea of the album, and then I ended up in the middle of a breakup. And in the middle of that breakup, I left everything behind of what I thought I was going to make of an album, went down one direction, then it changed again, then it changed again, then it changed again, and this is the album that it made. So I say that this album is more of like a soundtrack even than an album because you'll see there's lots of different vibes. There's stuff that's like soft, soothing, nurturing, and then stuff that's really like hype and that sort of like energetic, wild energy, and it goes from one thing to the next because that's really what it was like for me. I felt like while I was making this album, I was being taught about the truth of love. And ironically, as I was finishing the album, I entered into a new relationship with the same person that I had broken up with, but several months later. And we're still
Wow.
together now. It's a very happy ending. And it's an amazing transformative sort of mirror of like what this album is, which is really a person going on a journey to heal their own version of love, like inside themselves, learning to love yourself, learning to love your own relationship with life, and then also learning to love another person. So I think overall, I'll say that the music is very, very eclectic, and so is the story behind it. It's that very human experience that has all the light and the shadow and everything in between.
Interesting. I mean, it makes so much sense that it's so tonally diverse as well, given that, all those emotions that I'm sure are involved and those experiences, they must have all made their way in there in some way or another. And again, given how broad that experience must have been, it really doesn't come as a shock that it's so expansive in that way.
That's a very that's a very accurate reflection of it. I think all the experiences that I was having were so diverse, and then they also really challenged me to connect to all the really diverse parts of me. So I am literally a mixed race, multicultural person who has had so many diverse influences in my life. And even the artists that are featured on the album are also, people from Ghana and Bermuda and the UK and
Mm.
America. And it's a very diverse experience itself. I say it's like it's for the eclectic soul. Like if you're an eclectic soul, this is also a very sort of like eclectic, soulful album that's for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, just to expand on that as well, I think it's such an important time in history for an album called The War on Love to release as well. Given all current world events, it's like I think we really need artist voices to, bring out something so beautiful in such a way as well. I think, especially with song and music, it's such a fantastic outlet to get messages across and get experiences across. And yeah, like I say, just now of all times,
Yeah.
such incredible timing.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I really feel that way too. I think that especially if you are a creative person, an artist, a storyteller in any way, I think most of us are waking up to that idea that this war that we're seeing around the world, the very physical, literal wars, but then also the wars inside ourselves, like inside our homes, inside our lives, inside our minds. If you're an artist or a creator or a storyteller, I think a lot of people are realizing there's only so much control we have over the wars that are going on in the world around us. And what we do have control over is like the war that we've kind of waged against ourselves, in our own minds, in our bodies, in the ways that we think about ourselves. And I think a lot of us are finding our own versions of healing that. And it's really challenging. It's like we've been raised to actually just normalize war, like to normalize that humans are at war with nature and men are at war with women and like artists are at war with money and all of these concepts of just like polarity and oppositions. But I think that a lot of us are realizing now maybe that's not true. Maybe that's worth questioning. Maybe there is another version of my life where I could actually be balancing like these things that are oppositional forces. And even though I can't end the wars that are happening in countries around the world or in society, it does feel like I then become a better contribution to the world around me because I'm not like perpetuating that war that we kind of inherited.
Yeah, as well, just to add, it's like war and love are obviously polar opposites, really. It's like war happens when people in power forget how to love, I think that is really the stem of it all, So yeah, I think just a really powerful message behind that one. So I think pivoting just a little bit then, as for the people around you in your life, so family, friends, how have they been in the process of you getting to this point as an artist? Has it all been very supportive? Have you had any naysayers along the way? What's that experience been like for you?
Oh my gosh, predominantly, I am so blessed to have the most incredible supportive community of family members and friends. I mean, truly to levels that most people will never get. Like, I've worked with my parents for years. We're all creators, so like creating video content together, creating events together. My friend community is also just an incredible talent pool of like multi-hyphenate creators who are all like global
Mm.
nomadic souls as well that are really high up in their industry. And it really does feel like it's like a soul family endeavor. But I will say that I've also had just like so many other people, like, those little shadowy, challenging things that happen. Like when I was 11 years old and I was singing, and someone who was inside my family said, like, oh, you have a really nasal voice. And, other parts of my family saying, oh, well, if you're going to be an artist, then you better be ready to suffer and struggle because,
Oh
artists don't
God,
make
yeah.
money, like all of that, So I've had
Mm.
definitely predominantly incredible support. And also, I had to really like weed hack my way through my own versions of, people just being limiting or imposing their fears on you, like I think a lot of artists do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. How fortunate to have those connections, especially when they're as close as your own family. It's like I don't hear of it very often when it's an entire bloodstream, I suppose, of creativity and talent, and it's so wonderful to hear whenever that happens. So I suppose on a similar note, then, have you had any run-ins with like mental health or anxiety or any personal struggles that have then made its way into your music, or overall just personal experiences that you've then funneled into this creative outlet?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first song on The War on Love is called Old Soul, and that song was
Mm.
written over the course of years of really struggling to like find my place in the world and struggling to find my place in the world, meaning I really questioned for a long time, like, should I be here? Does it even matter if I'm here? And I think for some people, people get scared of that. They're like, oh, that's really dark, that's really intense. For other people, they know, yeah, that's normal. I live with that every day. I think right now there's still a lot of like stigma around that feeling of, having mental health or anxiety struggles. I think people are talking about it more and more, which is nice. But the reason why I
Mm.
call it old soul is because whether you're someone who's really in touch with, your acceptance that maybe you've struggled to find your place, or you're someone who's kind of just like still quietly dealing with it, but you experience it every day. I think there's lots of us who feel like those old souls. It's almost like we love so much, we feel so much, we experience so much, and then we feel like we're living in a world that operates more at the surface level, more at the shallow end of things. And so we can feel quite like we can feel isolated and lonely and like we don't even know where we're supposed to be or who we're supposed to connect with. So over the years of finding my own healing journey, my own balance with all of that through many things, through everything from therapy to just really connecting with community through art, through being my own version of, an indigenous spiritual person. I wrote this song and it took on so many different lives. And the reason why I chose to open this album with that song is because I feel like anybody who's going to listen to the music is probably someone who has had at least once that sort of experience, where you wonder, like, what are we all doing here? What is this all about? Does anybody even think at this level? Am I alone? And I think more and more, a lot of us are realizing we're not alone. And that's sort of the
Yeah.
whole message of that song is like there's a lot of us out here processing that and healing that. And the more that we all talk about it together, I think the stronger we get.
Absolutely. And it's funny as well because something that really comes across is the layers to, I suppose, for lack of a better term, the existentialism of it all. In the, it's obviously terrifying being able to ask these questions about our immortality and, our place in the world. But then equally, there's something so beautiful about that as well. The fact that we have the ability to do that, the fact that we live in a world that gives us the in to feel that way. It's just so multifaceted. It's like it's so hard to know how to look at it or view that kind of thing. But no, I think the way that you've brought that together is really, really special. And yeah, it's just an incredible feat to be able to portray something like that in that way.
Thank you. I love the way that you talked about that moment too of like existentialism. It's like, when you look up at a night sky and it's amazing and it's gorgeous and you think it's so beautiful and you're in awe. And then you also have this moment of like, whoa, we're just suspended out here in space and like we are just this small, minuscule thing in the middle of the
I'm an
cosmos.
ant.
What is the purpose of it all? And it is that edge between the awe and the fear that I think this album really touches on. That's why really also it's called The War on Love is like I think most of us have been conditioned to live a little bit more in the fear, like more in the fear, more in the
Yeah.
dread, more in the avoidance. But when we lean into the love, like when you have that moment where you're looking up at the sky and if you can get that fear, but then all of a sudden you melt back into like, yeah, but it's amazing. Like this is amazing. And even though there is fear, when I lean back into the love of something, that fear becomes not the driving force. It might still be present because it's part of the human experience, but it's not in the driver's seat anymore. And that's what I
Mm.
think when you said, world powers operating from like that controlling energy rather than from love energy. I think a lot of those people, even though they seem really powerful, are actually just quite fearful and they're not really connected to like their own experience of love.
Yeah, not everyone has that ability to reshape something negative into something beautiful. Again, I think that is something that creatives, no matter what sector of it you're in, I think that's something that only they have the ability to properly convey and properly, because I don't think there is a whole lot of logic to so much of it. So we do need to reshape it into things like music, like film, because without that, how do we explain these things? It's like I don't actually think there is a logic based way to have an outlet like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that what's really interesting, and this is what's so cool about music is so subjective. It makes no sense. We haven't even been able to scientifically prove its purpose, though we have tried, and there's many studies around it, and people
Mm.
say different things anthropologically or culturally or neurobiologically that is the purpose of why we make music or whatever it is, but it is really still quite up for debate. And I think that that just leaves it in the hands of the truth that we all know, which is like we just like it, we just respond to it, we just connect to it. We can't really explain or prove it away, but it just
It's not
is. And
that deep. If the
that's
beats are good,
life.
the beats are good.
Exactly.
It's just the
Yeah.
way it is. So, I mean, I do have something to touch on with you, which I think you'll have a really interesting response to, and that's social media and the internet. How do you view your place in that terrifying world? Because, I do think everyone has a different position on why they use it and, their motives for using it, whether it's promotion, whether it's to get your name out there, whatever it may be. How do you view it all? What's your opinion on that, and how do you personally use it?
Yeah, we could have a whole podcast about just this alone. I think a lot of people would be interested in it too, because
You
it's
know, I
stuff
thought as much.
that
I've been talking to you and I've thought this one's gonna
man, like,
blow my mind.
we all go through this. I'll tell you very simply, I have almost deleted my social media so many times, but every single time that that happened in the past, I would get like a message in my inbox or something from someone who said, "Thank you so much for sharing this part of your journey. I just want you to know, like, last month was really hard for me. My mom passed away. I was struggling with my mental health. I didn't know XYZ. And now I've found this page and you've just given me this moment of inspiration or hope or whatever it is." And it reminds me of a
Wow.
time when
Yeah.
I was really like in the thick of my own struggles. And oddly, even though social media is all the things we know, like it messes with our dopamine circuits and it can make us feel insecure, I was on social media finding other people who were helping me to believe in like examples of who I could become or people that I could be friends with. And I would direct message them as strangers. And now people do that with me. So there is this silver lining. And that's what I try to remind myself of in the seasons when I'm like so not interested in it. I don't want to be on it at all. But what I do is I let myself really have my own version of it. Like there's a lot of other things I could be doing that would mean I would have a bigger account and more engagement and all the things, but it just doesn't feel like me. And I know that that wouldn't actually have me living the life that I want to live. So my deal that I've kind of made with myself about social media as a creator is that the upside, the rewarding part of connection is so much, it's such a big part of my life and it's so worth it. But I always hold that in balance with like not overextending myself or burning myself out, trying to chase the tail of something that we've been taught to obsess over.
Yeah, as you should. I mean, I think there's a phrase, isn't there, about everything in moderation. It's like I think having that control and being able to form a healthy connection with social media is so important because they, like you say, people really do lose themselves to it. They become obsessed with the numbers, obsessed with the voices, and so often they don't mean anything, they're not real. So yeah, no, it's very relieving and nice to hear that you sort of have that very healthy level-headed relationship with it all. So, I mean, in a similar sort of sense, then, how do you view industry connections? As finding other people that do what you do. How important have those relationships been for you?
Yeah, it's also been such a journey for me. Like when I was much younger, I had opportunities to sign with all these majors and I was like in the rooms and I just had this feeling like these aren't my people. This isn't my path. Like I'll be surrounded by people that really will make me feel hollow or unsafe or unprotected. And I decided to walk away from that. And then I went all the way into like very deep completely indie, like underbelly of the internet stuff and did that with like bedroom producers for years and then kind of like found the balance of, people from inside the music industry would always reach out to me and then I would find ways to just make it authentic for myself. So, doing certain performances or showcases, if it was like BBC introducing or performing at venues or festivals or whatever, it always ended up in ways where it was like in alignment with who I really was. It wasn't me, going outside of myself and trying to put on this fake version of like what a musician should be like or what it should be like if I want to be in the industry. And I think that's where we get trapped is we have this like formula that we think we're all supposed to follow. And a lot of times it doesn't even work. And then artists are spending time, energy, money, your mental health on a formula that doesn't even get you anywhere. And then you just start to question yourself. So I think for me, I'm always still on that journey, of finding the people within industries, whether if it's music industry, film, other creative industries that are really good people and connecting with them and having like independent collaborations where I maintain a lot of my creative sovereignty and creative leverage. And you have to be really brave to say no to a lot of things as well, because there's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
shiny objects that come your way, but the trade-off of that shiny object is having to be a version of yourself that isn't really who you are. And at the end of the day, for me, other people are different, but for me, at the end of the day, I have to go to sleep and wake up being happy about the person that I am, more so than feeling like I got the shiny object.
Yeah, never sacrifice your identity for the numbers and the
Yes.
industry.
Yes.
It's not worth it, is it? You know, like we said, it's like there are so many people that lose themselves to this kind of thing, and it's so sad to see. Again, like even huge names, you
Yeah.
know, like if we look at people like, for example, I don't know, Michael Jackson, Amy Winehouse, it's like you see how these lives get
Yeah.
destroyed by the pressure of the industry. And again,
Yeah.
it's like such talent just wasted because of this horrible world that it sometimes has to take place in. So yeah, having that balance, being able to stop yourself when you need to stop yourself, so important. Very, very pleased to hear you have that. So outside of music then, because I've seen on your Instagram there's so much that you do. What is it that you do outside of music that you think is most important to your identity and your online image?
That's a great question because there's lots of things I do, but I love the way you framed it. The thing that I think is most important to my identity is that I work with other creative people on finding their path through the things we just spoke about. So I knew as a young artist that there wasn't really a roadmap for me because I didn't want to go to the major labels. So I wasn't going to get that artist development, sort of budget that they don't even really give you, but they say they give you. But I knew I wasn't going to have anybody else show me how to do the life that I wanted to live. So I got really curious and I started getting also behind the camera and off the stage, working in video editing, film creation, event production. And then I also started working with like different brands that would partner together with music events in order to create these sustainable models for independent artists, visual artists, filmmakers to come together. And it really got me excited about how many opportunities there are in this world for creatives to live self-sustaining lives that we actually often don't know about because we're kind of just like chasing the tails of these industry formats. So I work with a lot of creatives and all ages. Like I have a client in her 70s who's written 18 books and she's the founder of a huge organization, but she's
Wow.
also a poet and a speaker and a journalist. And then I have, like other clients in their 20s who are a health coach, but also a musician and also a dancer, and like all of these different kinds of creatives who are just making their own unique way through the world. And I think that's the most important to my identity because it's not only stuff I love to do, but I really believe that the future of our world will be uplifted by more creatives that are free inside themselves, free financially, free spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and not being trapped inside of these systems where their energy is getting pulled into things that aren't actually helping the world.
Gosh, free financially. Honestly, I shouldn't have brought that up. Honestly, like making
That's
me.
a whole other
Oh,
podcast too.
I'm gonna start crying now. No, no, I kid. So I mean, obviously, us being student pages, what we aim to do above all is give students advice for creative outlets that they want to get themselves into. What advice do you have for students that want to go down a similar avenue to yourself?
I love that. So it's the most cliche, most said advice in the world, but I'll say the cliche and then I'll give like a little unique spin on it. But it's often said as follow your bliss, follow your highest passion, do what you love. And that used to make me really angry when I was young, and people would say that to me because I'd say, that sounds great, but do you understand the reality of what that actually means? And now that I've lived through so much of it, I've understood the nuance, which is what I'll share here. My advice would be really be honest with yourself about what you love. And then also be really honest with yourself about what you need and what you want. So it's not just, I love music, so I'm going to be a full-time musician. It might be, I love music more than anything. But you know what? I don't want to live a life where I'm on the road getting weird hours of sleep or like having to tour, whatever it is. And I actually need a certain amount of like stability and income coming in all the time, whatever it is. If you're honest about what you really love, but also honest about what you need and what you want, and you let that become almost like this trifecta, like a diagram, it will start to become like a compass
Mm,
that points you forward. It will cancel out certain things, and that will be really challenging at first because you'll think, there's no options for me. I'm a contradiction. I'm a paradox. I want this, but I don't want this. And that means there's no place for me. And it's not true. It's what the world has told you. It's not true. And if you're brave enough and you're curious enough to continue asking yourself that question, okay, but what do I love? What do I want? What do I need? and you really lean into finding that the space will narrow and narrow and narrow, and it will really give you that thing that we all hear about, like find your niche, find your, your sort of
Yeah.
unique lane or whatever it is. It really will make you create your own lane. And it's how I've seen, you know, someone who loves film but doesn't want to be in the film industry, but really also needs to support people in the world who are going through challenging things. I've seen someone like that create a film program for artists that they got funded and they just have that career for themselves. I've seen people create like fashion lines that aren't even mainstream fashion lines, but that are also connected to music platforms. I've seen the craziest things, I promise. So my advice would be continue to go down that path of being honest with yourself and also surround yourself with people who are actually living that more unique version. Like if you know that you're a unique person, don't look at a pop star and then compare yourself to that pop star and be judging yourself to that. Or if you know you are someone who has a unique financial path, don't look at like a very normal, straightforward, tech person who has all the money in the bank and then judge yourself against that. Like actually surround yourself with the people who are eclectic, unique, unconventional, and doing things in the way that you know is for you. And I promise, if you follow those elements, you will get closer and closer and closer to all of these opportunities that will open up worlds for you that you might not even have the capacity to think of right now because you don't even know they exist, but they're there and they're waiting for you.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic advice. It's funny when you said about comparing yourself to big finance and tech people, because I thought to myself, I was like, actually, I think if I did have the ability to compare myself to Elon Musk, I would have a fantastic ego boost every single day of my life. Genuinely, it's if that was the bar, I'd be on top of the moon. I'd be overjoyed. No, but no, be it sorry. No, taking it seriously. No, absolutely. It's like no, that's fantastic advice. And I think, yeah, we do all need to open ourselves up to the concept that we aren't what we see around us all the time. Things aren't we can't always take things at face value. Yeah, no, it's absolutely just a case of finding your own path. So no, absolutely incredible advice there. So I think to end things off with a really big open-ended question that we always have mind-blowing responses to, honestly. What would you say has been in this whole journey the biggest challenge of it all?
Wow, that is a really open-ended question.
That's what I
I
mean.
love
I've had things between getting labels, having a child,
it. I love
it's
that. Okay.
brilliant.
I love that question. Okay. I would say the biggest challenge of it all is I don't know if anyone's going to be ready for like this level of my answer, but the biggest challenge of it all and the best challenge of it all has been learning about how to create my own reality on a very quantum physical level, like learning about neuroscience, learning about self-care to the level where I start to actually take scientific courses about like my subconscious mind and learning about fundamental development in early childhood psychology and how much those things shape the reality that we live. And the reason why I say that is because when I started out younger as a musician, I was very fortunate to have experiences in life where I was kind of forced to think about those things. I had like a near-death experience because of a toxicity infection that forced me to learn about like neuroscience and neurobiology and the way that our thought processes are formed by the childhood psychological development that happens in our youth and
Wow.
all those things. And so the biggest challenge was, first of all, learning that we have subconscious patterns that create our reality. And the next biggest challenge was actually learning how to change that. So I would say that the biggest and best challenge was actually learning how to become a proactive creator of my life by learning, yes, all the more spiritual sides of things like meditation and all of that, but also the more Western side of things, like really learning about the science of our human bodies, our brains, and how our reality is created. And if that piques anyone's interest, even though it sounds like a really geeky and very particular thing, I would say go seek it, find it, dive into it, because it is like the most incredible rabbit hole that will change your life. And as an artist, I always get asked the questions like, how do you do what you do? How do you create the life you have? What is it? And that really is the actual answer, is like learning how to become a conscious creator of my life instead of thinking things happen to me. It's understanding that the way I think about life affects the life that I have.
Wow. Well, I've never heard anything like that. No, that seriously
What
is
you get for
mind
asking such
blowing.
an existential and open-ended amazing
I,
question.
I know. I couldn't have wished for more. No, I mean, as I say, personally, not something I've ever looked into, but like, it sounds like I don't know where this is going to take me, but it sounds like something I need to be honest. Because I mean, it sounds so, it sounds like such a weight to be lifted off, to actually understand the origins and sort of the source of where these issues have come from. That does sound it's so freeing, and it's like, oh wow, I think that's actually something maybe we could all use for whatever reason.
Yeah, it will shift your world. And if it that is you and anyone listening, you can even just Google like reprogramming your subconscious mind or learning how the subconscious mind works. I also have a TEDx talk that I did that breaks it down a little bit. So you can
I
go,
saw that actually. Yeah, yeah.
it'll be fun for you, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, outside of blowing my psyche, this has been an incredible talk. So thank you ever so much.
Lovely.
So, I mean, just to finish off, then go ahead, plug everything you can, socials, what you're working on. Tell us what's happening.
Yeah. So definitely find me online. Like I said, Instagram is the place that I've ended up, even though so many times I've wanted to leave it because when people find me, they message me. I actually reach out. I am that person. So if you felt a connection here, like find me, reach out, actually send me a message. I will actually respond. My Instagram is my name, Tihane, Tihane. You'll see it pop up. And go listen to The War on Love if you're curious at all. It's streaming on all platforms except Spotify. We didn't get into that question, but I intentionally did not put it on Spotify because of some crazy things that they're investing in around AI weaponry. That's a conversation for another time, but you'll find it on all the other streaming platforms. So listen to The War on Love there.
Just a goated
And
take, may I say, by the way. Honestly, AI might be my ops at this point. So
it's just too
I'm
much.
I'm
And
glad to see your heart's so in the right place because I don't
yeah.
think a lot of people can say that.
I had to. And if you're in London and you're listening to this, I have a gig on July 22nd at Pizza Express in Holborn. So come find me. It'll be lovely.
Awesome. Absolutely incredible. So yeah, thank you ever so much for that.